Welcome to the Indigenous SME Small Business Podcast, where we shine a spotlight on the integral role of Indigenous small and medium-sized enterprises in our economy. This is your host, SK. In every episode, we delve into a key aspect of our communities, emphasizing the vital importance of supporting local businesses for a flourishing and sustainable future. Today, we are exploring the powerful intersection of Indigenous culture and values with modern business practices, focusing on the transformative impact of inclusive and culturally sensitive marketing. It is our privilege to welcome Kaeden Merasty, founder and CEO of the Indigenous Marketing Company, IMC, and a proud member of Flying Dust First Nation, to the podcast. Kaeden, a visionary Cree First Nation businessman, embarked on a mission to empower Indigenous people towards achieving full economic independence that aligns with their cultures, values, and beliefs. With a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Manitoba, focusing on marketing and international business, Kaeden is dedicated to creating economic opportunities for Indigenous communities through innovative marketing solutions. Join us as we dive into Kaeden's journey, the impact of his work, and his insights on fostering successful Indigenous-owned businesses. Good morning, Kaeden, and welcome to the Indigenous SME Business Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. It's truly an honor to have you with us today. Your commitment to enhancing Indigenous economic development through strategic marketing and your journey from academia to entrepreneurship is incredibly inspiring. We are eager to learn more about your experiences and the values driving your work at the Indigenous Marketing Company. So let's start discussing about entrepreneurial journey. The path to entrepreneurship is rich with insights, challenges, and transformative experiences. Kaeden, could you share with us your journey from aspiring to become a psychiatrist to founding the Indigenous Marketing Company? What motivated you to pivot into marketing, and how has your Indigenous heritage influenced your entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, that's a great question. So growing up, I was always told to become either a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And as I was getting out of high school, I kind of started to fixate on psychiatry as a potential passion of mine. And I actually went into the University of Manitoba under the Faculty of Science with like full aspirations to become a psychiatrist. But after just like a few weeks of classes, taking biology and chemistry and all those science classes, I realized I don't think science is really the path I want to pursue. And then I took a step back and I realized psychiatry, understanding how people think and their thought behaviors and their thought patterns, that's almost similar to how marketing works. So I realized maybe I should pursue marketing as an alternative path, and pursue a Bachelor of Commerce instead. So I essentially kind of pivoted in that sense that I'm still kind of working, with consumer behavior instead of, I guess, patient behavior, but it's the same. Like you got to determine how people think and determine how to meet their needs. So that's kind of how I pivoted from psychiatry to marketing. And in terms of like my Indigenous heritage influencing my entrepreneurial path, I grew up in Winnipeg off reserve. And I always was proud of being Indigenous, but I never really had like the background and the knowledge to like growing up. So I really wanted to finish school and work with Indigenous communities, really to help me on my own learning path, because I wanted to learn more about Indigenous communities all across Canada, because growing up, I never really learned that much. My father is Cree and he taught me like Cree words and stuff like that, but I never really grew up like an Indigenous lifestyle, a Cree lifestyle. So I've always wanted to learn more because I've always been very proud of who I am and my cultural identity. But I just wanted to essentially explore that more so. So that's why I started the Indigenous Marketing Company, because I saw there was a very big opportunity in the market. I did my research and I realized there aren't many Indigenous marketing agencies really out there in Canada. And that doesn't really make sense because there are tons and tons of Indigenous businesses starting up every day. I think it's one of the fastest growing sectors in Canada. So that just made sense to me to essentially take this leap forward and start this agency.
Yes, as you rightly said, like the indigenous businesses are growing at a very faster pace, and companies like indigenous marketing company, they need the services for their promoting their business. Now, Kiran, like reflecting on your transition, like what were some of the pivotal moments or lessons learned that have shaped your approach to business?
After I graduated from the University of Manitoba, I went and worked with a sales and marketing agency for about a year. I wanted to gain some real world experience before starting my own agency. So I actually was fortunate enough to work with the president of that company for that whole year. He kind of took me under his wing and taught me lots about what he knows. And one of the main things he preached was value proposition. Really understanding your value proposition can go a long way in business. And I think that is like one of the pivotal moments that helped shape my approach to business. Because at the end of the day, you got to step back and look at like your why essentially. What do you do? Why do you do what you do? And who do you do it for? And establishing that value proposition early on when developing brands is a key element to ensure your success in the future.
Kaden, your journey really underscores the significance of embracing one's heritage and passion to create meaningful and impactful business ventures. As we journey through Caden's remarkable transition from aspiring psychiatrist to a pioneering entrepreneur, it's a vivid reminder of power within our personal stories and heritage to influence and drive our professional paths. Let's draw inspiration from Caden's journey to explore and embrace our own diverse backgrounds in shaping our entrepreneurial ventures. Kiran, let's discuss about indigenous culture in marketing, the role of indigenous culture in marketing. Authentic representation matters in every facet of business, especially in marketing. Why is it essential for businesses to authentically represent indigenous culture and voices in their marketing efforts? And what are some common misconceptions businesses should avoid?
Yeah, that's a great question. Authenticity is very important in marketing because it helps establish trust between the brand and the end user. When it comes to Indigenous culture, it can be kind of tricky because there's a common misconception that all Indigenous people are the same, do the same things, have the same culture, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. There are so many different First Nation communities across Canada, all with their different cultures and their own different beliefs and languages. And I think that's where the most common misconception takes place. Throughout since starting my company, I've started to realize there is actually a pretty big problem in the fact that there is a lack of Indigenous representation in stock photography. You can barely go online and find any Indigenous people in a workplace, just in general, anywhere, really. Like there are a few pictures of totem poles and teepees and stuff like that.
That's right, Kiran. When we try to find pictures for our indigenous SME magazine, it's very very difficult to find such pictures.
Yes, exactly. And that is a big problem, I think, is that the lack of representation Indigenous people currently have in the business world, essentially, and pretty much in any aspect of life, is we're very underrepresented. And I think when putting together your marketing and branding materials, you need to try to be as authentic as possible. Sometimes it may be difficult to do so, but
How can businesses ensure that their marketing is respectful and culturally sensitive to indigenous communities?
yeah, that is also a great question. Honestly, the best thing you could do is try to do as much research as you can. As I mentioned before, each community is different. Understanding their culture, their languages, their beliefs can go a long way when partnering with First Nation communities. Um, and if you can't find any information online, you could call their band office and just ask your questions and inquire about their culture and try to find out as much as you can. Trying to be as respectful as you possibly can be will go a long way.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts, Kaden. Your insights highlights the critical importance of culturally sensitive marketing practices in promoting inclusivity and respect for indigenous people. Kaden's insights into the importance of authentic representation in marketing not only challenge us to rethink our strategies, but also to consider the deeper impact of our business practices on various cultures and communities. This conversation is an invitation for all of us to critically evaluate how we incorporate diversity, and cultural sensitivity into our businesses. Now, okay, then let's discuss about the challenges and opportunities. Indigenous entrepreneurs face unique challenges and opportunities in today's economy. What are some key strategies or best practices you would recommend to Indigenous entrepreneurs looking to build a sustainable and successful business?
Yeah, personally, through my experience, because I just started my company um, almost 3 years ago now. And what I really wanted to focus on when starting my agency was building a strong foundation. So, building that business plan out, understanding your value proposition, um, doing market research, understanding your competition, and really identifying if your business is going to be viable in the long run. With that, once I developed my business plan and had everything set, and I really want to ensure that I then had all the necessary touch points needed for consumers to find me, to make it as easy as possible for my target audience to find me, opposed to me having to reach out to them. So before even launching the Indigenous marketing company, I was in the background working on building our website. From firsthand experience, I realized that once you kind of get started um, in developing your business and running your business, it's hard to go back and work on some of the smaller things like maintaining a social media presence, updating your website, stuff like this. So I want to make sure that I had everything kind of developed and have that strong foundation before getting started with essentially running the business, because your business starts to become the last thing you worry about once you're working with all these different clients, because you have to put your clients' needs first. So I'm kind of guilty of this myself. I haven't really updated my website that much, but that's why I ensured it was to a place where I liked it and it could maintain my business and my business identity for a long period of time. Even with social media, I don't really even market myself too much on social media just because I'm so busy marketing other brands. But luckily that hasn't been to my detriment, because I've been fortunate enough to been able to work with so many great clients and maintain so many great clients over the years. And I couldn't be happier.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. And also, Kaden, can you share an example of how leveraging cultural heritage and values can differentiate an Indigenous-owned business and connect with its target audience?
Yeah, I think it's never been a better time to be an Indigenous entrepreneur in Canada. There's so much support and love towards the Indigenous culture right now, where really bringing that authenticity of your Indigenous identity to the forefront of your business can actually be quite a positive thing for your business. There's Indigenous businesses wanting to support other Indigenous businesses. There are non-Indigenous people and organizations wanting to support Indigenous businesses. So I think leveraging your Indigenous identity is actually a positive thing in today's day and age. So I recommend doing so if you feel it accurately aligns with your brand and your value proposition.
Kaden, your valuable insights offer invaluable guidance for Indigenous entrepreneurs on navigating the business landscape while staying true to their cultural identity. As we pivot towards the critical role of education for Indigenous youth, let's contemplate the profound impact that both academic learning and cultural knowledge can have on the next generation of leaders. Education serves as a bridge between past wisdom and future innovation, offering a foundation upon which Indigenous youth can build to pursue their dreams confidently. Let's discuss the role of education for Indigenous youth, Kaden. Education plays a pivotal role in empowering and fostering future leaders, right? Why do you believe education is important for Indigenous youth, both in terms of academic learning and cultural knowledge? And what message would you like to share with them as they pursue their dreams?
Yeah, I think education is one of the most important things to pursue. It helps create pathways to success. And throughout history, Indigenous people have been encountering barriers. We still encounter barriers, systematic barriers, and education can help overcome these barriers. So I highly, highly encourage Indigenous youth to pursue education to the highest level possible. At the very least, try to graduate and get your grade 12, because I know that is an issue in many First Nation communities. Is there's lots of students that drop out prior to getting their high school diploma. But like I said at the beginning, education will help with that pathway to success. And education is also great when you need to learn about who you are and your cultural identity. And I think it's vital to essentially keep Indigenous identity alive, because our languages, our cultures, they have been stripped away from us, and now we have to kind of get it back. So I think this is education is the best way to do so.
Right. And Kaeden, like, how do your educational background and cultural knowledge contribute to your success and mission with the Indigenous Marketing Company?
Yeah, well, I was able to pursue higher education at the University of Manitoba, and through graduating from the Bachelor of Commerce program, I was able to acquire the tools and resources needed to essentially start my own organization. I was able to learn about different marketing practices. I even actually majored in international business as well, because I saw the importance of understanding different cultures and how to essentially work with these different cultures and how to be respectful when working with different cultures. And that's vital when it comes to conducting business. So that's how education has helped shape the Indigenous Marketing Company, is because I was able to learn everything I know through education, and then after graduating through firsthand experience and real world experience.
Kaeden, your emphasis on the importance of education eliminates the path for Indigenous youth aspiring to make a positive impact on their communities through their entrepreneurial endeavors. Now, let's discuss about your future aspirations. Like, looking ahead is crucial for continued growth and impact. As you look towards the future, like, what are your aspirations for the Indigenous Marketing Company, and how do you plan to continue supporting Indigenous economic development?
Yeah, at the end of the day, going back to the Indigenous Marketing Company's value proposition, it is to essentially help Indigenous businesses grow. So that's what I'm going to continue to do moving forward. I'm going to continue working with small entrepreneurs, nonprofit organizations, First Nation communities all across Canada, even across the border, all throughout Turtle Island, to help them establish their brands and essentially become economically independent. So that's essentially my goal. It's been my goal since day one, is to help brands grow and represent themselves authentically.
Thanks for sharing, Kaeden. And what do you hope will be the long-term impact of your work on Indigenous communities and broader Canadian economy?
That's a great question. Essentially, it goes back to being proud of who you are. I want to see Indigenous entrepreneurs all across Canada be proud of their cultural identity and boast that through their branding and marketing efforts. And I just want to see overall more Indigenous representation across Canada, in the business sector and any other sector.
Kaeden, your vision for the future of Indigenous Marketing Company and Indigenous economic development showcases the transformative potential of combining traditional values with modern business practices. Now, before we conclude, Kaeden, could you offer a piece of advice to our listeners, especially those interested in supporting or engaging with Indigenous-owned businesses and communities?
Yeah, I strongly encourage youth to pursue their education to the highest degree possible, pursue your dreams. And for non-Indigenous businesses, I highly encourage you to reach out and work with Indigenous businesses all across Canada, support Indigenous business, not just because we're Indigenous, but because we are able to provide services just like any other person can. The services we offer, whether it be through products or other services, are just as effective, if not better, than some of the current options out there. So there's lots of businesses willing to collaborate with everybody. Indigenous people don't need to just only work within Indigenous communities. We could work with everyone.
And thank you, Kaeden, for sharing your valuable advice with our listeners. And also, like, if our listeners and other small business owners, they want to get in touch with you or with your organization, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, you could reach out through our website, imcmarketing.ca. You could also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn through Indigenous Marketing Co. And you could contact me directly through my email, info@imcmarketing.ca.
We will also be adding all these contact details in our podcast description so that it's easier for our listeners to get the information. Thank you so much, Kaden, for joining us today on the Indigenous SME Small Business Podcast and sharing your profound insights and experiences. Your dedication to fostering economic independence for Indigenous people through innovative marketing strategies is a testament to the power of combining cultural values with entrepreneurial spirit. It was a great pleasure hosting you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Today's discussion emphasizes the importance of authentic Indigenous representation in marketing, the unique strength Indigenous entrepreneurs bring to the business world, and the crucial role of education in empowering the next generation of Indigenous leaders. A special thanks to our partners, exclusive shipping partner UPS and exclusive accounting software partner Zero for their generous support. To our listeners, we encourage you to explore how you can support Indigenous economic development and cultural preservation through your business practices and personal actions. And also remember to subscribe to Indigenous SME Small Business Magazine by visiting our official website indigenousSME.ca for more insightful conversations and practical advice.